Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight we have a Game 6 of the NBA Finals that I'm super excited for. I can't wait for that, but unfortunately, it could be the last game of this entire NBA season. And you know what that means? It's time to start talking about the offseason. Now, I have been talking about the offseason a little bit for each team in my offseason preview videos that I've been making throughout the course of the playoffs. However, in this video, I want to target something even more specific than just an individual team, and that's an individual player. It seems like the superstar player that is most likely to get traded this offseason is Chris Paul of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Now, I want to start this off by saying, why would the Thunder want to trade Chris Paul? He's really good. Well, they are a team with a younger core of players in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Darius Bazley, Luguentz Dort, the greatest player of all time, obviously. Guys like that they are really building around, as well as their surplus really of draft picks that they have moving forward, whether it's the Rockets picks or the Clippers picks. They have so many draft picks. So they are really starting to rebuild, and this year we saw them be really competitive and be a solid team with a good lineup centered around Chris Paul, Danilo Gallinari, Steven Adams, as well as the younger players, of course. But Gallinari is a free agent. Adams will be a free agent after this season, and it appears, there has been a lot of talk around the league that the Thunder are interested in saving money this offseason due to the global pandemic that we are experiencing currently. And the easiest way for them to save some money would be to trade away the guy on their roster that is probably one of the biggest contracts in the entire NBA, but really just the highest paid guy on their roster in Chris Paul. And it could also help them with their rebuild if they're able to add some solid young players that fit with their core. So in this video, I'm going to be looking at it from the perspective of a bunch of GMs around the NBA, what I'd be willing to give up for Chris Paul, and if I were Sam Presti, the general manager of the Oklahoma City Thunder, would I be willing to accept these trades? So to begin this exercise, I thought about some teams that would realistically consider trading for Chris Paul. That list started with the Lakers and the Clippers, as well as the Bucks and 76ers. Those are four teams right there that are championship contenders and have at least a pretty solid shot at winning a championship next season, and adding a star player like Chris Paul could only help them in those championship aspirations. All of those teams could also use an upgrade at the point guard position, as the Lakers right now are trotting out pretty much LeBron at point guard, but if they had Chris Paul, he would be an upgrade from Danny Green, who Laker fans are clearly not a fan of. The Clippers need more playmaking, and obviously Chris Paul would be a playmaking upgrade over Patrick Beverley or Lou Williams. The Bucks have seen Eric Bledsoe struggle big time in the playoffs in the past 3 years, so they could clearly use an upgrade at the point guard position. The 76ers have been playing Ben Simmons at the point guard, but it appears that they want to go away from that. And Chris Paul would be a huge upgrade over Shake Milton, who's the guy that they've been running out there lately. So those four teams are in a tier as championship level teams that could use an upgrade at the point guard position and could use that extra star talent to elevate them to a new level. Some other teams that I think could trade for Chris Paul would be the Suns, the Magic, the Bulls, the Spurs, and the Knicks. The Suns have been playing Ricky Rubio at the point guard, and he's been absolutely fine, but they could use an upgrade, and Chris Paul would be a huge upgrade. Would just add another level of playmaking alongside Devin Booker and be that second star for Devin, and help to make this Suns team a bona fide playoff squad. The Magic have struggled on the offensive end of the floor the past couple of years. I think each of the past 2 years they've been a top 10 or 12 defensive team, but a bottom 10 or 12 offensive team. So if they can get their offense up there on the same level as their defense, they may be able to move up a tier of Eastern Conference playoff teams and go from being one of the teams battling it out for the 8 seed to a team on par with Philadelphia and Indiana battling for the 5 or 6 seed. And obviously that's not terrific, but it's better than being the 8 seed. It has to be. Maybe you have a chance to win a playoff series if you acquire Chris Paul and you're the Magic. So that's what they could be looking at. The Bulls could use a culture change for sure after the firing of Jim Boylan. And Billy Donovan is the guy that they just hired to be their head coach. And Chris Paul just played an entire season under Donovan with the Thunder. So they could be interested in acquiring him. He could also play the point guard spot and allow Kobe White and Zach LaVine to play off the ball a bit more, which is where I think that they excel more so than playing on the ball. The Spurs could trade for Chris Paul to make another run with their core of DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge. They haven't been wildly successful with that pairing, but adding another star-level player could really be a nice boost to them and maybe give them a chance at winning one last playoff series before Popovich retires, which has to happen at some point, right? Finally, the Knicks, similar to the Bulls, need a culture change, and Chris Paul could definitely set that culture, and he could also be helpful as a second star to the stars that they are going to be attempting to lure to come to New York in the 2021 summer offseason. And there are a lot of guys that they are certainly going to be interested in, and we're going to be seeing lots of players photoshopped into Knicks jerseys over the next year, and Chris Paul could help make that a true possibility because he could push that team into playoff contention, and he could also just improve the culture wildly and make them a more interesting destination for star free agents. So now that we've given an outline of teams that would consider trading for Paul, here are what I think those teams could potentially be offering. We'll start with the Lakers, who, like I said before, could use a true point guard. Paul would be an upgrade over Avery Bradley for sure. So here is the package I put together for them. Danny Green, Alex Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, and pick 28. Green is mostly salary filler, and he really is not a great contract, but he is an expiring contract, and it's pretty much just to make the money work. He's not an asset of any kind at this point, especially not to the Thunder. Maybe to a championship level team that's going to be competing to win it all. Danny Green is an asset, but not to a rebuilding team like Oklahoma City. Alex Caruso and Kyle Kuzma are both flawed, but solid young players that could see some more improvement from the players that they are currently. They could continue to grow and eventually become, well, they currently are solid rotation players on a championship team. So maybe they can grow into being starter level players. With Caruso, he's an excellent defender and athletic finisher. And Kuzma is a guy who we've seen improvement from on the defensive end of the floor during the playoffs, who can also get some buckets on the offensive end of the floor. However, he is very streaky. I think they would also throw in the 28th pick because that's just another asset that adds some more value. So the Lakers offer Danny Green, Alex Caruso, Kyle Kuzma, and pick 28 for Chris Paul. It's an interesting package, and I think if I were the Lakers, I wouldn't mind giving up those guys if you're adding someone like Chris Paul. The reason why I don't think that they would have to add much more than that is because of Paul's insane contract. The amount that he's getting paid is really over the top, so I think that they wouldn't have to give up as much as they would if he were on a more team-friendly contract. And they're really only giving up two decent but not great young players and one first-round pick. For Chris Paul, I think that would be a pretty fair deal. If I were the Thunder, I would certainly think about it because Caruso and Kuzma are interesting additions to their young core. The Clippers, I have offering something along the lines of Patrick Beverley, Rodney McGruder, Landry Shamet, and Terrence Mann for Chris Paul. Beverly and Magruder are mostly just to make the contracts work, as you do have to give up quite a bit of money to get to Chris Paul's number, his salary number, to match that in a trade. It does take quite a bit of money, as you will see. There's usually 3 to 4 players involved in each of these trades. Landry Shamet is a solid young player who has shown glimpses of being a really good shooter and a starter level player. So I think that the Thunder would be very happy to trade for him. And Terrence Mann is another young guy who hasn't really shown too much so far, but is a good defensive guy who has potential in the NBA. This offer to me is slightly less enticing than the Lakers offer because you're only getting one bona fide good young player in Shamet, whereas the Lakers would be offering Caruso and Kuzma. And you also have to take in Patrick Beverly, who is a older guy with 2 years left on his contract. However, it's certainly something that you have to consider if you're the Thunder because Shamet is a good young player. The Bucks are the next team. They would be trading for Chris Paul because he could bring another aspect of playmaking to their offense and be a really solid second or third player around Giannis Antetokounmpo, and he could help Giannis get to that championship level that he wants this organization to be at. The offer I have the Bucks making is Eric Bledsoe, DJ Wilson, the 24th pick, Ersan Ilyasova, and Robin Lopez. Ilyasova, Lopez, Bledsoe, and Wilson, none of those are very interesting or exciting players, and the 24th pick is really the only asset you're getting here if you're the Thunder. I mean, maybe Presti would be interested in DJ Wilson as a lengthy defender because that's something that he has shown a lot of interest in during his time with the Thunder as they've drafted guys like Terrence Ferguson, Hamidou Diallo, signed Lou Dort. Lots of similar players to DJ, although DJ is obviously quite a bit bigger than those guys. He's more of a 4-5 instead of like a 2-3 like those other guys. So maybe the Thunder would view him as an asset, as a young guy they could develop. But Bledsoe is a solid starter level player. I think he's hurt his trade value quite a bit with his playoff performances the past few years. But you still have to think he would have some positive trade value due to his regular season feats as a solid player. And maybe if he plays well for the Thunder, he would even be a flippable guy who they could trade to a contender. Robin Lopez and Ersan Ilyasova are mostly just to make the money work. Neither of those guys are pushing the needle much at all. And honestly, if they were traded to the Thunder, there's a pretty solid chance that the Thunder would just cut them. The 76ers offer that I have here is one of the more interesting offers, in my opinion. It would be Al Horford, Josh Richardson, Zaire Smith, and the 21st pick for Chris Paul. Josh Richardson is one of the best assets that the Thunder could acquire in a Chris Paul trade, so that obviously is a giant plus to this trade if you are the Thunder. Zaire Smith is a young player that the Sixers drafted in the first round in the 2018 NBA draft. However, we haven't seen him do much of anything because he had a massive allergic reaction. So who knows what you're getting in Smith, but he could be an interesting flyer if you're the Thunder. And he is the type of player that they are interested in. Like I said, these wing type guys who have defensive potential. Al Horford is mostly just to make the money work, and he probably has some negative trade value because of how immense his contract is. However, if you're the Thunder, taking him in while also getting 3 good assets in Richardson, Smith, and the 21st pick may be worth it. Obviously, they didn't like paying Chris Paul, and trading him for a guy on a longer contract that's paying only slightly less might not be what they're looking for, but this is certainly a possibility. The offer I have for the Suns is Ricky Rubio, Ty Jerome, and a lottery-protected 2021 first-round pick for Chris Paul. This is an interesting one because it's pretty much just the Suns upgrading at point guard while giving up an okay young guy in Ty Jerome who just had his rookie season and didn't have a chance to show a whole lot, spent some time in the G League, I believe, as well as the lottery protected 2021 first, which could have some solid value because you have to think if it were to convey, it would probably be like the 15th or 16th overall pick. So getting that's another very interesting offer if I am the Thunder, one that I'm certainly thinking about because you're getting a decent young player in Ty Jerome as well as that first round pick that could have a lot of value. Maybe you would ask for Kelly Oubre instead of Rubio. That is certainly possible because Oubre is on an expiring deal, and who knows if the Suns are going to want to pay him or not. And he has shown that he can be a very good wing player in the NBA. I think he averaged close to 20 points per game for this season for the Suns. But if they don't want to pay him, and it's very possible that they wouldn't because they do have some solid young wings on their roster, guys like Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, they could take someone like Sadiq Bey or Patrick Williams or Aaron Nesmith in the upcoming 2020 NBA draft. And if that were the case, then they would really just have an overload of wings, which is unusual, but it could possibly be a position that the Suns are in. So giving up Oubre wouldn't be too big of a deal, and turning him into Chris Paul would be very nice. The Magic could offer Aaron Gordon and Khem Birch for Chris Paul is what I have for them. Not even giving up a first-round pick while bringing in someone like Chris Paul could be huge. I don't think that this is a route that the Magic should go in because Jonathan Isaac being out for the year is going to make it difficult for them to compete next season. But just imagine a Chris Paul and Nikola Vucevic pick and roll game. That could be pretty lethal as those are two very smart, very talented offensive players. The Thunder would do this because Aaron Gordon was the 4th overall pick not too long ago and has shown that he is a very good athlete and can be a good NBA player. He just hasn't necessarily been put in a position where he is most comfortable. He's been forced to play out of position for large portions of his career, playing the 3 for big portions of time, which is clearly not where he should be. He belongs playing a 4 and maybe even a small ball 5. And the Thunder could put him in a better position to succeed. Magic would bring in Chris Paul to mentor Markelle Fultz and be a very nice primary playmaker for them, primary ball handler, and that is something that they have been lacking in recent years, as guys like Markelle Fultz and Evan Fournier have had to fill those roles. So that's another very interesting idea right there. The Bulls would be trading Otto Porter, Thad Young, Chandler Hutchinson, and the 44th pick for Chris Paul. Once again, not giving up too much, mostly just expiring deals in Porter and Young, as well as a guy who has shown flashes of being a solid young player in Hutchinson, and the 44th pick, which is an area the Thunder have had success in getting quality players in that part of the draft. This is something you could do if you were the Thunder because Porter has shown when he's been healthy that he can be a very good starter level player. Thad Young is a veteran who you could probably flip to a contender if you are the Bulls, or if you are the Thunder, excuse me. And he's an expiring contract either way. I think he's expiring. There might be 2 seasons left. I didn't fact check that one. But he's a guy that you could either flip or just let his contract run out, like I said before. This is another interesting idea if you are the Thunder, especially if you buy Otto Porter being a good player, because the Bulls kind of have to sell low on him here because of his injury struggles in the past year or so. So maybe this is something that the Thunder would want to do. I just am not sure that there's enough here. Maybe the Bulls would have to give up Daniel Gafford as well as another young guy with some potential. I don't know. The Spurs could offer something like Patty Mills and Rudy Gay as solid veterans who are on expiring contracts and could be flippable to a contending team as guys that could be quality players. If you're the Thunder, just keep stockpiling assets would be kind of the idea here. I also think they would have to throw in Chimize Metu. Don't kill me for butchering that name, but Metu is another young guy. I don't know too much about him, but young player, not going to hurt to acquire too many of those. And the 2021 second and the 41st overall pick are second round picks that have some value, and we thought that the Thunder were going to have to give up value in order to trade this Chris Paul contract a year ago. And if you're able to give him up for some valuable young players and draft picks, that's as good as you can ask for. Finally, the Knicks could offer Dennis Smith Jr., who's a young player who has shown flashes, Alfred Payton, who's an expiring contract, and Julius Randle, who is also an expiring contract, and a guy who has shown potential. Obviously, he wasn't put in a great position this year with the Knicks where he had to be the leading scorer, but when he was on the Pelicans, he showed flashes of being a quality NBA player, as well as the 27th overall pick, so the Thunder could add another first-round pick to their clutches of first-round picks because they have so many of them in the next couple of years. This is very, very interesting. It really depends on how you value Julius Randle and Dennis Smith Jr., who was one of the worst players in the NBA last year, but has shown flashes of being solid. And the 27th pick just adds another asset. And this is one of the best offers I think that the Thunder could get. So looking back over these, the Lakers offer looks pretty good. The 76ers offer is one of the better ones as well. And I do like that Knicks offer. So there are lots of good trades here, but I think if I am Sam Presti, if I'm the general manager of the Oklahoma City Thunder, I'm taking the deal from the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm adding Josh Richardson as a very good player to my core. I slot right in alongside Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the starting backcourt. I'm taking Zaire Smith, and I'm taking that 21st pick and running away with it because I think that would be some great, great value for Chris Paul, who is one of the more overpaid players. And if I'm Sam Presti, I'm hopping all over that, especially because maybe when Al Horford is there, he's a reclamation project. We can see him show some improvement under whoever the coach that the 76ers hire is, or the Thunder hire that is, and Al Horford, Josh Richardson, Zaire Smith in the 21st pick, that's the deal I'm taking. I hope that you enjoyed this style of video. Let me know in the comments what you think the Thunder should trade Chris Paul for. What are your ideas of trade packages? That's it for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I will see you all again very soon.